to HR Unpacked, a podcast about HR workplace issues, where we analyse and then discuss the latest developments in HR and employment law that impact both employers and employees. Welcome, Kate.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Great to be here. We're really pleased to have Laura Kelly with us today, who's Head of Talent and Culture at GG Hospitality. 17 years in the hospitality industry, working across a plethora of brands. So we're going to really talk today about your experiences and what you've done at GG Hospitality to change your culture, enhance your culture, improve the employee journey. I think we all know hospitality has gone through a real period of challenge and change over COVID. So it'd be really good to have a great discussion about what you've experienced and what you've implemented at GG in order to bring your business forward, because it's growing, which is fantastic to hear. Yeah. So it'd be great to get a little intro, Laura, where you're at, what you're doing, so forth.
So I said my name's Laura, Head of Talent and Culture for GG Hospitality. I don't know anything other than the hospitality industry. Many people fell into it from the age of 16, starting out my work experience. Predominantly my experience is in luxury 4 and 5 star hotels across Manchester and London, and then most recently with GG Hospitality as a Head of Talent and Culture, focusing on that employee journey from onboarding all the way through to having your career with us.
Fantastic. And what brands have you worked across? I mean, it's great.
There's a list.
If you're going to go for any types of hospitality, you go 4 and 5 stars. So I like that to start. But what brands have you worked across?
So previously to GG, I worked for a company called Valor Hospitality that is another hotel management company, and overseeing Crowne Plaza, Doubletree by Hilton, Marriott Experience. My time in London, I worked for the Dorchester Collection for a couple of years, which was an amazing experience. And then when I first started in the industry, well, in my younger days, I worked for Radisson Edwardian Hotels, and that's really where it all started, 8 years. But wasn't always HR, started in reception, checking it out.
Brilliant.
And then just sort of progressed from there.
How better to know what is a good client experience, though, to work your way up through the ranks. So
yeah, absolutely. I think understanding the operation is fundamental in any hotel business or any hospitality business, and I think you can really empathise when it gets tough, because it does get tough. But I think also when maybe the wool's being pulled over your eyes a little bit, you understand that actually that's not the way how it's done. You know, we're trying to make things better, and sort of understand and explaining why you're changing, what we're trying to implement, and having that operational background does help. And I think a lot of people in roles like myself or in revenue, finance, etc. will all have come from the operation at some point. Yeah. Or been started in F&B or in the spa, if your hotel's got a spa, or in reception, concierge, in the kitchen, washing the pots. You know, we've all been in the trenches.
I think that's really important. That's exactly what most of our directors at Peninsula have done. I used to be an advisor, a documentation consultant. You work your way up through your ranks, so you know every piece of the jigsaw really well, and I think that makes for an excellent senior within a business.
I think it's so important, really is.
The documentary maker Michael Moore, whether you've heard him or not, he did a thing about capitalism and businesses, and he went around to the big companies, car makers in America, and he tried to get access to the CEOs of these car companies. And there was only one that would speak to him and say yes, they can do it. And it was changed the oil filter on a car, and there's only one at Ford that would come down and actually do it for him.
Right.
And the guy, I can't remember what the CEO's name was. He said, I had to learn what I was expecting people to do. Yeah. So it was so important in his management style and his leadership style, and to create the right kind of culture within the organisation as well.
Absolutely. And I think, talking about our leadership team, there's 6 of us. And our CEO, he owned hotels. He knows them. He's been in the operation. And our COO, Stuart, his background's revenue.
Right.
We've all, he started out as a graduate in revenue in London, and then he was in revenue, went to be a general manager, and now he's the CEO of GG.
Right. Fantastic. So the word culture, what does it mean to you? What culture are you trying to create in your organisation, and certainly within the hospitality piece?
I think for me, culture is so important, and everyone says, can you explain it? Can you describe it? I think it's really hard to put it into words, and it may sound a bit cliche, but for me it's a feeling. Yeah. It's a feeling when I walk in that hotel or in back of house or into a team or into the restaurant, where I'm in the hotel, I feel that the team are happy, and if they're not, they'll voice it. And the fact that they have the ability to come to myself or my team or anyone in the team and have that open and honest conversation, I think is really important. And I think it takes time to get there. It's not a given. You know, you're expecting your team to put their trust in with you and be honest. And people don't like opening up. You know, people don't like change. But I think if you put them on the journey with you at the start and they understand what they're getting from it, what are the benefits of us coming on this, this cultural change, they'll be there with you. And I think you will make mistakes. We did along the way, and there is a few times where we've gone, stop, reset, what's the goal, what are we really trying to achieve here? Because you do get, you get bogged down with the day-to-day and, you forget that actually let's stop with the day-to-day, the week-to-week. We want that 2-year goal, where are we aiming towards? So I think it's really hard to describe, and I know a lot of businesses, we do as well, we have the values on the wall and, when people come into the back of house areas, but for me it's the guests are getting an amazing service, but so should the team. So that element of service from onboarding all the way through to, just genuinely being an employee with us has to be the same as what we would provide to our guests. Why would it be any different?
I like that. Their experience. Their experience.
We're in a service industry, so why wouldn't we provide a service to our team? And I think for me, everyone laughs at me and I'm laughing now because I know exactly what the team is saying about me, but I have a big thing around language, and we don't use the word staff in our hotels.
Right.
Because I think, it becomes, we're a team, we're in it together, we have to all do our own work in our own areas and deliver for the team to do well. And I just feel like the word staff doesn't have the right positive approach we want in our culture.
It feels quite transactional, doesn't it? And power,
every time someone says it, there's a pound in the jar. Like, they get caught out all the time, but they correct themselves, and that's all that I ask.
So what do you use in replacement?
Team, employees, colleagues, friends. As long as it's not staff, it's fine. Because sometimes there might be a few words that they shouldn't be using, but I just think language is really important in culture, and the way that we're communicating with our team and the language that we're using around that, I think makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, everyone does laugh at me.
I've got an English degree. I haven't actually got an HR degree, and I think that your choice of words is so fundamental to the success of your business. The words your leaders use, the tone of language, the demeanour, it can make or break a team. So I agree.
Yeah, communication's massive, and the language that you use for it. What kind of cultural changes have you seen over 17 years then within the industry? From language and from everything?
From when I first started in the industry, I was 16. So I'm now working how old I am out for it. I was 16 and I didn't know any different. But all I knew is that I enjoy speaking to people. And I just loved this. Every day was different people, different scenarios, different problems. And I think when I first started in the industry, the hierarchy was that was your manager, you really, and I think there is
quite
a lot
traditional.
Very traditional, and a lot of, you don't question them, you don't, why would you question them? You're a manager. But then I think and also I was 16, I just left school, I didn't know, I would never have questioned anyone, I wouldn't have said boo to a goose, let alone question my manager on the decision they were making. But then I think over the years, my confidence really grew, and I think that's probably one thing the hospitality industry has really helped me with is confidence. Because I had to speak to 250 guests every day. I couldn't not be confident. And I think, over the years, as I've probably gone into different positions in my career, confidence grows, and then you become a little bit wiser to, actually, no, I can challenge my opinion's important. And I think every company I've worked for has ensured that people can voice their opinions, and I think that's really important, that especially in the industry 16, 17 years ago, 16-year-old Laura, how would I have voiced my opinion? So I think it's really important that everyone, when I was in that age, we had an organisation set up in the hotel where you could go and voice your opinion. Every month a group of team members would meet, and we still do it now in our hotels. We call them our team satisfaction squad, because it's really important that I don't see every team member every day. I'd love to. Oh, that's impossible for me. But, the fact that they can voice their opinion every month in a safe environment, and then we take them action points away. Some of them we might not have time, they might not be valuable at that time to work on, but the opinion's valuable. And some things we then, you know, we get to action on it. And I think having that at very early stages of my career, it's still in our hotels now, it just shows how important it is, especially for we've got different languages in our hotels, different cultures, we've got a really diverse workforce. Some are going to be really opinionated and they're going to be really confident in giving their opinion to Laura Kelly. Fine, absolutely, I'm fine with that. But, you know, our food and beverage waiter who's new, just joined the industry, you know, they're studying, has not been in an environment like that before.
It's funny you should say it. We went into Manchester Saturday night, great atmosphere, sun was shining, really busy, and we went into 2 separate bars, and in one, the waiter, well, actually she was a waitress, was extraordinarily miserable. And then we went into, I think it was Banyan, and we had this waiter, and he was so friendly and so amicable and engaged with us as people. We were just saying, why is that first person gone into a service industry? And with that in mind, how do you recruit to make sure you've got my second example there?
And it's so important. I go back to what I said, you know, I think people have to be happy at work.
Yeah.
We spend so much time at work. You know, I spend more time at work than I do with my kids, which is a really depressing fact, but it's the reality. I'm a working mum at the end of the day. And I'm really passionate about what I do, and I work for a company that wants me there and enjoys me being there. And I think you've got to want to be there, and if you don't, then that's either something you need to work out with the company or you need to work out with yourself. And the industry isn't for everyone, you know. This is a stopgap industry. People do, you know, they first join us as they're studying, or it's a part-time job alongside something else that they're doing, or they're away from home because they're studying in a different city, and we have some fantastic talent through that. But then there's other people that it's not for them, and that's absolutely fine, but they're still very good at what they do. So attracting people into the industry is tough, and I think trying to break down that barrier of it is a great career is really hard, and it's really difficult to sort of get that through, especially at early stages. So we are doing a lot of work around the industry in general. You know, we're doing some work with the Manchester Hoteliers Association at the moment.
I think, was that when my colleague Michelle was there the other day with you?
So I've started to chair the HR forum, but you know the forum's been going for a long time, and you know we do the awards every year, etc. But as a company, you know, as a forum and as a collective, as in all the hotels in Manchester, they do a lot of work with colleges, you know, and universities, and getting into high schools, etc. to educate about the industry. And I think moving on to sort of what we do in our hotels, for me, proactive recruitment is so important. I think a lot of people can be quite reactive, you know, if somebody leaves, they need to hire, somebody leaves, they need to hire. It's all about relationship building. So we will, you know, in some cases be looking for our talent before even the role's available, you know, having them conversations, getting them into the hotels, giving them a show around, getting them to know us as a business. That can be going on for a year before we even have a role, and we go, actually, role's available now. Do you remember speaking to Joe Bloggs about this? They were really interested. We just go back out and have them conversations. But then there's also non-negotiables, and I think sweating the small stuff's really important. You know, we need to remember that when we are interviewing or having conversations with candidates, they're interviewing us as well. Like, it's got to be right for both parties. You know, I think we are a good place to work. Can we improve? Absolutely. But we're not right for everyone. But we're not right for everyone, and that's okay. You know, that's why there's so many hotels. That's why we're a big industry. But for me, there is non-negotiables, and culture's critical. Everybody has to go through second interviews. So they'll be interviewed by either what could be their line manager, their department manager, either myself or my team, or the general manager has to meet everyone. And I suppose it's from experience as well that personality is key. We would take personality and attitude. And there are a lot of people, you know, I do know a lot of people saying, a lot of people are doing it. We would take personality and attitude over the technique and the training they've got, because we can train that. We've got, you know, we've got that in the business. We've got them.
How do you test? Because it's an interesting thing you say, because I always say that some of our best advisors didn't start off as the most technical, but they had that ability to connect with the customer, build relations, and a good you know, a good feel about them, be it introvert, extrovert, somewhere in between. They could connect. How do you how do you measure that at interview? It's quite hard.
It's really
isn't it?
hard, and normally people are like, oh, I've listed all these questions. I really don't. For me, the questions have already been asked. If they're coming to a second interview and and I'm sat with them, I should not be needing to ask the interview questions. For me, it is around, what do you do in your personal life? What are your hobbies? What are your passions? Do you have family? It's about genuinely getting to know that person, because
is that because you're looking for a cultural fit with the organisation?
Yeah, and I think when you ask an interview questions, it can become very transactional. But when you get to know when you say, would you have hobbies outside of work? And there's this light that comes in somebody's face because they're talking about what they're genuinely interested in. It's a whole different conversation for me.
Definitely.
And I think that then their personality shines through, and then you get a different level of interaction. And I think also really big piece of me is their interaction when they walk into the hotels. How do they speak to the receptionist when they're sat down waiting, in the waiting area, or in the bar or in the lounge? Are they smiling? Are they talking to the team members around? I think that's important as well, and most of the time they do, because they're in the industry. It's natural. It's like when I'm off work, you hold the door for somebody in Tesco, and you're like, why am I holding the door? I'm not at work. It's just natural. I think for talent, that's it's really important that proactive recruitment is crucial. We have some great last 2 years. We've done a lot of focus around our presence in the local areas as well, so recruitment events, and we might not have roles available at the time, but being present at them is
just
really
having
important.
it in the mind, isn't it, that you're a go-to employer.
And then we do a lot, especially for hotel football, we do a lot of work with UA92. So obviously they have a lot of students. We're literally up the road. We have a lot of students who work for us at hotel football part-time, especially in the seasons. It's seasonal, so it was perfect for us over there, especially with the football season, and they're fantastic. Had some real great talent from them, and hopefully will continue, especially now they've got Manchester City Centre as well. So that is a great pipeline for us, but sometimes the best candidates don't come from the industry. They're just trying it for the first time.
Dipping the toe in the water.
Can we just go back to the team satisfaction? What did you call them? What would they call this team?
Well, the team satisfaction squad.
That's it,
a
right.
bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I might need to change
So what do they do then? What practically do they do?
So they all have their own job roles, so they might work. So there's a representative from each department. So housekeeping were represented, so their team would have nominated that person. In the boring side of it, if we ever had to consult something, that would be the group of people we went to. But that's just for formalities, and we don't want to talk about formalities because we're talking about culture. So a representative from each department would be present, and each month we meet with them, and we have an agenda. So it could be anything. Obviously, guest service is spoken about as well. So we'll go through what our TripAdvisor scores are, what our guest metric scores are, what our recent team survey scores are. So we do 2 surveys a year, feedback from that. So we'll present all feedback back to the team from that. And it is just genuinely, I think the agenda's great, but there's a big section for open conversation. What are we doing well? What do we need improvement on? What you're seeing out in other employers that we're not doing? What do you want us to do? So most recently we had, so Hotel Football wanted their summer party, which they had last night. I'm sure there's a few summers today, but they wanted awards. So they got it, and that's what they had last night. And it might be something that actually for a summer party we wouldn't normally. Awards would be Christmas for us.
I hope they had it at Hotel Football.
No, we
didn't. Did they not?
No, give them a night off. So we went to another location. So I didn't go. I heard it went very well. I gave them a night off for me being there. But they wanted awards in the summer, so it's something so small, but actually it's really impactful because we've listened and we've delivered, and there'll be a few sore heads today, but I'm sure they all had a great night.
A lot of companies do that though, don't they? They do these surveys, and then it's not transparent what comes out of it, and they don't act upon what's in there as well.
I think it's really important when we have our surveys, obviously it is confidential, and that piece is really key, that the messaging around it is confidential. However, like we do with our guests, we need to say, if you have an issue and you want to talk about it, you need to give us the opportunity to fix it before you go write it. Because if once you put it in the survey, go write in surveys as many times as you want, which is fantastic, but have a conversation with us and let's try and fix it before it gets to the survey, because it's probably something really, really small but really impactful that we can address.
We do a you said we did document
exactly
after each. Do you do that?
Right.
And it's like what some would perceive as menial things, like tea in the kitchen to I want a gym in the company, and you forget how much has come to fruition from just passing comments from staff. So we really put it in people's faces, so it's really explicit.
We do every quarter we try, so it tends between every 4 to 6 months, we do sort of a road trip around the hotels as like executive team.
Yeah.
And we present to the team what's going on in the business, what's coming up in the business.
I like that.
You know, anything new from a HR perspective. So recently was our maternity and paternity packages that we've just enhanced benefits. So, and we present it to the team, so they're hearing it from us. It's not I heard this but I've not seen the policy. It's all up there in front, and we're open to questions. So then we open the floor, like, anyone got any questions? Sometimes we don't get any, but sometimes we do, and it could be really, really small, really simple questions that they just want to hear from us. They probably know the answer, but they just want to hear it from the leadership team.
And the fact that you're even asking, has anyone got any questions, goes a long way, doesn't it? You know, value and opinion. Okay.
You mentioned talent pool before.
Yeah.
What skills gap have you noticed within your own companies?
I think the skills gap in the industry is a difficult one. I think the hospitality industry has had a tough few years, so there always has been a skills gap in the industry. And predominantly has always been chefs. Chefs is a tough one, because especially now with the sponsorship of visas, etc., all that around it, but we won't go into that because that's a really long conversation separately. So chefs are difficult. I think after COVID, predominantly work long hours.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a business, we're really trying to move away from that. But I think in our hotels, what we're seeing is that mid-level management, so sort of supervisor, assistant manager, is where we're seeing the gap. And probably what I do think long and hard, I'm like, why are we seeing this? What's the difference? And I think we have fantastic retention for our HODs and for our management levels. Fantastic retention. Like, I think we've only had one person from our management team at Hotel Football leave in the past 3 years, which is
really
fantastic,
good.
which is amazing.
It's in your industry as well. That's very good.
But then for the mid-management, we then get stuck because there's nowhere for them to move. Yeah. And then people entering into the industry, as I said earlier, either they're entering it because they love it and they've been in it for a while and they want something new, or they're entering it because they're doing it part of their studies, or, you know, it's a part-time job. But we don't have a lot of people who specifically apply for that supervisor role or that assistant management role. So what we've done now is we've developed our own sort of internal development pathway for it. So we had 15 places this year, and people needed to apply for it. They needed to do a video to say why they wanted to go on it, what they felt they were going to get out of it, and what their core personal values were. And it's a 6-month programme they go through. It's more soft skill training, so, you know, leadership management, how to train people, you know, as an individual. And then we're sort of putting a finance module in there and a revenue module in there and a HR module in there. So at the end of it, hopefully they'll have a knowledge, they're rounded and have a knowledge.
It's like a mini MBA, that. All the different facets of
and they're not as well. We have like an external trainer that's supporting us a bit, because then they're not just listening to me and my team talking for 6 months, and it is an element of they're getting all rounded. But we've noticed that is probably, you know, an area that we are seeing a gap.
I think it's
got to do something about yourself in a way as well.
I think it's that whole thing, you know, about recruiting really good operators into leadership roles, because you want to give them that opportunity, but often there is a gap. That I think from middle manager to senior is easier to bridge because you've got that experience, but from operator to middle manager to supervisor is quite difficult, because you're promoting a good operator.
And especially if you're promoting within, you've just come from being everybody's friends.
Yeah.
So now needing to lead, manage, coach, mentor them, that is tough. That's probably the hardest transition I know personally. When I've been, you know, promoted in the past, it's tough. It's not easy, because you're going out on Friday night, Saturday night to the bar with them, and all of a sudden you're telling them what they're working on their shifts. And it's a very different conversation. And listen, you can still be friends, no one's saying you can't, and it's having them boundaries. And if you've never known how to place them boundaries in the workplace, no one teaches you that. You've got to sort of develop that and understand what your own personal boundaries are as well. It's probably a real tough transition.
Yeah, I say to my leaders sometimes, you can say no.
Yeah.
I think often middle managers, they just want to please everyone, but you can say no, and you can say it in a very eloquent, firm but fair way, and get a positive response. I think a lot of people struggle with that at that level.
It's not one size fits all, like, especially for our industry. I said earlier that we have an amazing diverse team. We're a 24-hour operation. We should have something that suits everyone.
Yeah.
You know, we can be super flexible where needed for the business and for the employee. So you get, it doesn't works for me, doesn't work for, you know, somebody who works in hotel football and doesn't want that responsibility. But yeah, absolutely, I think it's really important.
What about retention? Because I mean, you touched on earlier, it's quite not transactional, but you get people who are studying and their life moves on and the priorities change. How do you keep your good people?
Develop them, train them. I think development's key, and I think understanding what I think somebody wants to be developed on is very different to what they want to be developed on. So I think having them conversations early on is really important. And I think in each hotel the teams are very, very different. You know, we've got Hotel Football, which is a big hotel, big meeting event space overlooking a football stadium, and we've got Stock Exchange, which is a luxury hotel, 40 bedrooms.
They are very different.
Yeah.
And you know, I think when I joined, I thought I'd see a lot more people moving between them.
Yeah.
You see you do see, they definitely do support each other. It was great, you know, recently we opened the restaurant, we had a team from Hotel Football who came and helped on press night, which for the team in the new restaurant was fantastic to see that, you know, they've got my back and they're going to come and help.
Yeah.
But I think retention, I think for us, our work environment is fun but fair, and I think honesty is really important, and you really have to drive that from bottom to top to bottom, because if there's a flaw in it, it's not going to work. And if you're expecting people to be honest with you about how they want to develop, you know, what they want out of their role with us, you know, where they want to go in the future, but you're not giving them the time or being honest back on what that time scale looks like or what that commitment looks like, I think that conversation has to happen. I think with retention, we have been really, really fortunate, especially at Hotel Football, like I said, our management team there, but, you know, people do move. I sit on the fence that if people are leaving us, but they're leaving for the right reason and not for the wrong reason, that's very, very different. We can't retain everyone. In an ideal world, I would love to, but we go back to that skills gap. People are never gonna be developed from within, because we need movement to allow that. But I think, like you said, it has to be moving for the right reason, not for the wrong reason. That's a whole different conversation if it is for the wrong reason.
Do you do things like exit interviews?
Yeah, exit interviews.
Do you do stay interviews?
No, we don't.
Any kind of new things out there?
It is a new thing, actually.
New concept.
No, we don't. But I would say that we speak to the team a lot. But I think they're
kind of your mini stay interviews.
Yeah, we do speak to the team a lot. So, like I said, we call them like the town halls, where we're going to speak to the team every quarter. And then we have the satisfaction squad meetings. And then me personally, I'm in the hotels every week, so I'm very accessible. My team, for me, that's probably a non-negotiable within my team as talent and culture, is this. We don't really have an office. There's no closed door. You know, people want to see people. It's really key. You know, they don't. Yes, they'll send an email, and of course, but pick up the phone, speak to people, go see them in the hotels, build them relationships. And I think that really helps with that conversation, that honesty that comes through in all aspects in each department, really, in both the hotels.
Yeah. I don't know if you are, so forgive me if I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm nervous.
But have you had a look at any of the elections a week on Thursday?
I know.
Have you had a look at any of the manifestos or what it means for your business?
In the know in my bag. No, I haven't looked into them into detail yet. I'm just sitting on the fence and waiting to see what happens, and then to sort of go, right, this is where we need to action, and maybe what's going to change and what's not going to change. There's 16 new employment law changes terrify me. It's a lot to put on, on a department. You know, I think people have an opinion if it's right or if it's wrong, entitled to it. But it's a lot. It is
a lot, and if I don't know what will happen, but if Labour do come into power, then they've said they'll commit to introducing the changes within 100 days of coming into government. So I was like, on my calendar, that's October. It's soon, isn't it?
That is really scary. I can't. Well, it'd be difficult because Parliament doesn't sit, does it, in the summer? So I have to wait 100 days after the summer break.
Exactly, probably.
Trying to communicate that out to the team. It's a lot of change if it does happen. To communicate that out to all team levels and to make sure they understand the reasons why. That you're not just changing you're not just changing for the sake of changing. You know, it's like the service charge policy. You know, that's obviously it's not come in yet, but it's been delayed.
Yeah, has there been?
Should have brought that up.
How has that been for you? Tips.
To be fair, we're okay. I'm just touching that we don't really like to get involved. That's probably a really lazy way to say it, but we implemented ours in January and we've stuck with it. So even though it's not changed, we'd already implemented.
Yeah.
It's fair. You can't argue with it. It's fair. So it is what it is.
How did that go down with your team?
Fine.
Yeah.
You know, again, we got them in a room. We was honest with them. We went through the policy. We went through the legislation. Absolutely fine. No issues.
Yeah.
I think because it's fair, they're fine.
It goes down
again,
well.
open communication. I think if we would have changed it without advising, would have been a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to ask a question around the expectations of your customer.
Okay.
Because, and I appreciate from an HR perspective, you might not get involved as much, but I just think clients, customers' expectations have elevated massively.
Yeah.
What's your view on that, Laura?
I am from the service background to start with, so my background was front of house before HR.
Yeah.
So I think that's where my passion really lay before obviously talent and culture, because that's where I am now. Expectations are higher than ever. People expect value for money, but that's very different in two different hotels. But one thing I would say that we're very good at is our service scores are fantastic.
Yeah.
And actually, if it is, you know, if there is a negative comment, it's never about service. So I think, you know, in the industry, you go out and you spend time in the industry, in your personal time, you live it, don't you? And I think, you know, even when I go away or on a holiday or I go to restaurants, bars, etc., you can forgive people when there's a little bit of a mistake. They're human.
Yeah.
And I think it's how, you know, the follow-up from that mistake, if there is a mistake, how that's rectified and the general service. But I think, like you said earlier, there's somebody who knows genuinely a little bit miserable. I don't think you can forgive that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, people
seem like you don't care. I think that's what you can't forgive. When
it's just a genuine
like
when someone spills a drink, it's a mistake.
Yeah.
But you have to care. You know, the passion has to be there. We're in a service industry. We're there to service, you know, the guests, but the expectations absolutely have gone higher than ever. Value for money is really important, and there's a lot of new places opening.
Yeah, a lot of competition in Manchester, isn't
there
it?
is, yeah. We were discussing that before, weren't we, about how it's changed.
Yeah.
And I think we have to sit as, you know, the GMs of the hotel, as owners, as leadership team, and go, why should they come to us? What they're going to get differently visiting our hotels? And I think I can say confidently going, if you go to hotel football, that experience is just on another level from what it offers. You know, it's very, very different. It's very fun. It's very playful.
Very quirky, isn't it?
Quirky.
It's something unique.
It's unique, but it also works for a business guest very well.
Yeah.
And then I can also sit on my other side of my luxury head and go, do you know what? Stock Exchange is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, you walk in, the smell, someone at the door, the flowers, the service, the lighting, everything. It's
just a lovely experience.
It's just a nice, lovely experience, and I can sit here going, and the team that are there want to be there and want to really, really enhance that guest experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's crucial. If your team don't want to enhance the guest experience, then, you know, that's a question in itself.
Yeah.
How do you, within the company then, who sets the culture? Is it the owners? Is it the leadership team? Is it just permeates all the way through?
I think it's a mix of everything. I think absolutely has to come from the owners, because if I'm trying to create a positive culture in the hotels but the owners don't want that, there's definitely, it's not going to work. Yeah. I'm very fortunate that our owners are fantastic when it comes to culture. It's a non-negotiable, positive by the way, not bad. It's a non-negotiable in our hotels, and I think I always say here, like, when my children get older, when they go out to work, how would I want them to be treated in the workplace? And, you know, and I sit here and I go, you know, we employ 16, 17, 18-year-olds all the way up to, you know, 50, 60 plus. Their mum and dad want to make sure that they're treated right, or their family, and it's a basic. Like, it's not hard. Like, I think sometimes we really overcomplicate this culture piece, and like I said to you earlier, I think it's really hard to put in words. Has to come from the top, has to be led by the leadership team, but also I think there's an element of the team on the floor in the hotels have to lead with that culture and have to understand that, you know, the basics are really important, and for me, start at the foundations of the culture. You turn up in work to your uniform correctly on time is a foundation of our culture. You know, you smiling and being happy and wanting to be here and welcoming and being genuinely a nice person is a foundation of our culture, because it's all them little nuggets that then become the big piece and hopefully flows through. But there is, you know, I was saying to you earlier that when I joined 2 and a bit years ago, it's gone so fast, you know, the big goal was, you know, to get in that top 30 best places to work. And it felt a million miles away. I felt like we were never going to get there. You have to reset. We had to reset. We had to go back to basics. We had to go, what's important now? What's not important? We'll leave that for later, because we'll have some time at some point to revisit it, I'm sure. But what's important now, and how we're going to get to that goal? And it was the basics, sort of resetting with the management team, with the team, you know, and sometimes it was being a bit firm but fair, and, you know, fun and, you know, being fun and fair is important, and consistency is key. And now I can sit here going, we got top 6. We didn't get top 30, we got top 6, and next week we find out if we get where we sit in that top 6 of best employees in the hospitality industry, and hopefully we get number 1. But I went top 30 and we got top 6.
Yeah, it's brilliant, that. So good.
So I think what I'd say is, as a business, don't be afraid to sit and reset and look at, you know, if it's not working, it's okay to change. It's okay to admit you might have got it wrong, because everyone makes mistakes in the team. I think the team then go, oh, do you know what? They're actually really genuine and they care, they're resetting. We're going to go on this with them because they've admitted that they've made a mistake. But like I said, for me, and I laugh because the team laugh at me all the time, you know, uniform for me, I'm a stickler for it. Uniform,
those things count though,
so
don't they?
important.
The hospitality industry does,
It is. Again, it's like the staff team thing. There's there's a couple of things that they all just go, oh, here's Laura. And it is, you know, you need to have your uniform ironed. It needs to be cleaned. You need to be wearing the right uniform. Like, if you want to work to an airline, that is a non-negotiable. So why is it not a non-negotiable in our hotels? You do that. Our non-negotiables for you as an employee is that every month we do a wellbeing activity. Every month we do an engagement activity. We're re-looking at our benefits package every year. We're not just staying stagnant. You know, we're expecting this from you because, you know, that's part of your job role to commit and to do that. But we're giving you our end as well. You know, we're going to meet you in the middle here and hopefully make the workplace better.
Just speak to staff about benefits, because it was mentioned with Kerry Cooper, wasn't it, in another episode, when he advised companies on what to do. They just said, we're going to offer bonuses. This was in the finance industry. And he said to them, do they want that? And they said, we don't know. We just thought they wanted it. And he went away and spoke to the staff and they said, no, we want different things like private healthcare and other things. So do you go and speak to staff to ask them what they want?
Yeah, we do. So again, it'll come up in the team satisfaction survey, but it comes up a lot in our engagement surveys. Probably benefits is a big piece. However, we have a lot of benefits. Like, for example, long service, we award like not cash in money, but a monetary value. So for a year you get £100, £200, up to 5 years, £500, and every year after 5 years you get £500 every year.
Right.
Fantastic.
Which is great. So that, especially at Hotel Football, is fantastic, and that's why our retention, the team love that. We would never remove that for Hotel Football because it works for them. They love it. That's why their length of service is 5+years, 5+ years in some of the roles.
It's fantastic that.
We have done a bit of work on benefits this year. So a big piece was around like our parental packages, so maternity, paternity, adoption, and we offered statutory, which is like 6 weeks at 90% and or £152, is it now? I'm losing the plot.
Yeah. That's why I have brain box.
I'm like £152 something pennies a week. So there was a big piece around that. So this year we launched in January that we've now enhanced our packages. So for maternity we offer 6 months full pay.
Right.
followed
Fantastic.
by
That's great,
statutory.
that,
Yeah, really good.
And
That's unusual, that,
It
isn't it,
is,
in
and
hospitality?
it's something
Yeah.
that I know it wasn't just me, with a team of us worked in it. I'm a mum.
Yeah.
Like, I've been there. Maternity leave's hard, and
Yeah.
so is paternity leave or adoption leave. It's not easy. And then paternity leave, we do 6 weeks at full pay, but can be taken over 6 months in blocks of a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Child's first birthday is a paid day off.
Right.
What else do we do? Gift, which I think most companies do, but just little pieces like when you're returning back to work, you come in for lunch with the family, you get your family to obviously see your workplace again,
Yeah.
just sort of making that transition a little bit easier.
They're lovely touches, Laura. They will
Yeah.
go down such a long way.
Yeah, so I think something that, and we've committed in our policy to review it every year, because it's great now.
Yeah.
In a year's time, are we still ahead of the market? Is it still a benefit? And then we've done a big piece on pension this year as well, so we've moved to a private pension for everyone.
Yeah.
And then an enhancement for certain team member levels, which again was a big piece. But we do refer a friend bonuses. We do a lot of benefits, and we do
Yeah.
a lot of stuff in the month for the month. So, you know, we have a great EAP, so we work with Health Assured alongside yourselves. Like,
Yeah.
they are, you know, really helpful. And I think and I know a lot of people do have EAPs, but every month we look what we're getting out of it. Are people phoning it? Are people using it? You know, looking at the data is really important on that.
I think that's so key, because a lot of businesses have that EAP piece just to tick a box, and you've got to be measuring the value of it, and you've got to be talking about it all the time, and it lives in you every day. So
I think Health Assured I must annoy them, because as soon as it goes quiet in the hotel, I'm like, right, back in. What are you going to tell
what we're
about?
gonna do next?
Where's the free lip glosses? Where's the free water bottles? What's the free business? Because it's so important.
yeah.
Because they'll walk past a poster, they remember a face, and I go back to that. People want to see people.
Yeah.
It's really important. So for us, EAP is really important. But benefits, back to your question, I think we look at them. And listen, I say I'd love to do them all.
Yeah.
Can we? We can't do them all in the first year, but we look at them every year, and we look at what the feedback is, and sometimes it's little things like, can we have more fruit in the canteen? For me, it's not a benefit. That's just it's our team areas. Absolutely, you can. Or can we have a different menu? And we provide team food, and sometimes I forget that that's a benefit, because it's just it's the norm in the industry.
Right.
But it's making sure that actually what we're offering is good enough as well, because that's if you have your lunch out every day, that's easily £5 on a meal deal.
Absolutely.
Over the year. So it is, and we do lunch and dinner for the team that are working.
That's great. I didn't appreciate that was kind of, it's a norm, do you say, in hospitality?
Really, right?
A norm in the industry.
That's a massive perk, with the cost of living, isn't it?
Yeah. If you look at the research, the CIPD recruitment and retention report, salary will always be up there and why people apply and stay in the job. But more and more, it's about the brand and about the benefits. Is the difference now between people staying and applying for a job, and that companies are still not recognising it.
Yeah.
They're still going down that salary route, and it isn't anymore now. People being picky and choosy about where they work.
Even on adverts, like I say, I probably giving myself a little bit of feedback and reflection now, saying we probably need to advertise our benefits a little bit better in our adverts, but again, that's in a bigger project we're looking at. But when you do go out and you see statutory pension, statutory holidays, there's a big piece around they're not benefits, they're a basic. But things like team meals, they absolutely are a benefit. Like I said, we do a wellbeing activity every week. So not every week, every month. My team will go mad every week. So that might be that sometimes we do like a wellbeing walk from Hotel Football to Stock Exchange. It's 5k.
Yeah.
So we get the team out. We host. I don't know. They wanted to do a bleep test in Heaven on the football pitch the other week. Off you go. I'll sit and cheer you on. That
I'll
sounds
stick with the free
fantastic.
food.
I'll stick.
It's a bleep test.
You know when you see PE
When
and you do
running
like
back
the
and
bleeps?
forth.
Oh, right.
They did it. Yeah, I know. This is. So
That's a benefit.
they wanted it, so I'm classing it as a benefit. We did it. But part of the well-being focus of the month, if they want to go do a bleep test.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's facilitating that in an area that they can all do it comfortably.
And they'll have a real good laugh doing it, won't they? It'll bring the team together.
But it's little things like that. Like I never would put a bleep test on, but if that's what you want, off you
Got
go.
your bleep test.
Yeah.
And what are kind of your key culture pieces for 2024 that your head is in the game on, you're focused on, and
It's funny you say that. So on Wednesday, I have my mid-year strategy meeting with my team.
Okay.
So for me, for the rest of, I'm giving my strategy. So for this year, to now until the end of the year, like development is still a key point for us. Training development. Yeah. So like I said, we've done the mid-level management program, which they actually graduate in September. So then sort of taking key takeaways from that. But now I want to look at team member level development, and they obviously have on the job training, and they have the health and safety training that nobody really likes doing. But for me, where are we adding value? That's something I say to my team all the time. Is it going to add value? Yes or no? If it's a no, okay, it's always got to add value, because sometimes when you're in my team or in HR, I think the role in itself, like my title isn't HR, it's talent and culture, it's people and culture, it's really transitioned. So I'm always saying that as our team, whatever we do needs to be adding value. So development's definitely one, and I want to look at the team member level now. Obviously, boringly, policies and procedures, whichever comes from July.
It's inevitable for any business.
And it is a big piece that we do need to focus on. And then I also want to focus on, again, it's a little bit boring, but again, our handbook, I want to look at it from a cultural perspective rather than a policy perspective, because I'm sitting here talking about culture, but I sit and go, do our policies really, talk the way I'm talking about culture, or is it really, is the language a little bit stiff, is it a little bit hard, so I want to do that. And
that's called the empty shell syndrome. I've mentioned this before, so the empty shell syndrome is about policies and procedures, where you have all these policies and procedures, and there's nothing underneath them. There's no culture that drives them, and they're just there for a tick box exercise. There's nothing underneath them. So this big concept about you've got to have policies and procedures that fit your culture.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's your first impression of many businesses, isn't it? You have your interview, then you get your SMT and your handbook by day one of employment. That reflects who you are. You're probably reading that in advance of walking through the door.
Yeah, definitely. We need to, I think it's like I said, they need to align, and like you said, I think sometimes you go, I'll come back to that, but I am committing the next 6 months. We can't come back to it. It's got to be done. And then I think for us, especially at Stock Exchange, will be retention around the restaurant. With a brand new team in there. We've just recruited a huge amount of team members. So sort of retention and development for them, sort of
stabilising it.
Yeah, definitely. And some people might think, that's really basic, but basics are important. Yeah. And again, I go back to foundations being set right and consistency. And then 2025 we'll come back singing and dancing.
I wholly agree with that. Sometimes you get wrapped up in all these quirky little things and icings on the cake, and you forget, are my people happy? Are they trained? Are they engaged? What's the length of stay? Those fundamentals are...
I think, like you said, you get all this data, and I think, again, our next 6 months is we have data from everywhere, sitting down and making data-based decisions as well. Obviously, Pete, I think... in my role, you have to have emotional-based decisions because I'm dealing with people. But I think when you're bringing, when you want to look at new concepts or new platforms or new training or engagement, sometimes you need data-based decisions. Is it going to work? We want to look at a communication platform. That's probably one thing where it will be 2025 for us, that we need to get to a level where we can communicate to everyone in all the hotels and departments consistently, and it's not a little bit of Chinese whispers, because you know it happens. Whereas we can get a platform that sort of enhances that for us, and works for all generations, and so we're working on that in the background as well. So hopefully,
thank you.
We'll get there.
Just my final question: do you have different generations of workers, or is it fairly young in terms?
No, really different.
Right.
So proudly, we're 51% female,
right,
across the business, which I don't think anyone would expect. I think when you walk into the hotel, you genuinely think it's male dominated, but it's really not. It's female dominated,
right?
Which is, I think, was interesting. And then generations, really split. We probably more around the sort of mid-20s, early 30s, but no, I think we have team members up until in their 60s.
Right.
Yeah.
One who's in not planning to retire, which I love.
Great.
And he's fantastic.
He must love what he does.
Yeah. But no real mix. Obviously, I think, and we do have a few young workers as well. So we've done a lot of work last year around mentoring and work experience. We've hosted a lot of work experience in the hotels, which has then transitioned into them obviously working flexibly with us, which is great. So real mix. I wouldn't say there's obviously a little bit of a higher percentage, but real mix, which I think is great about that. I think that's really what's great about the industry is it is a genuine mix of ages, backgrounds, cultures.
That brings so much diversity and creativity and different viewpoints. It's fantastic.
Definitely. Helps me. It gives me lots of opinions. But it's great. I'm like, share it. We need to. My way of thinking is only one way of thinking. It's best to bring it on, share along all the way.
Yeah. Super.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Laura. It's been fantastic, and it's great to see
it really is,
your organisations develop and expand and kind of bring Manchester to the fore as well within hospitality, because we were discussing before about how it's changed over the last 30 years.
So much,
It's a completely different city, I think, now.
Yeah, and just because it's a recent memory, going out on Saturday with my family, and I was with generations from my 14-year-old daughter to my 80-year-old mother, and the atmosphere was fantastic, and the vibe in Manchester was just buzzing. I sound really Mancunian saying that, but it was, and it's through brilliant establishments like yourselves where you've got that quality service that's, brings so much to our city. So
it is. It's a great industry, and I think sometimes it's not given the best reputation, but actually it is a great industry, and I think long may it continue, and hopefully I've done my hotels justice today sat here, but I think the industry in general, everyone's hard working and everyone's trying to change and adapt for the better. Everyone, they're not out to do a bad job, they are just genuinely trying.
Brilliant. Thank you so
much.
Good stuff. Thanks for coming to the podcast.
Anytime.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.